Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today, we are wading into the deep, incredibly lucrative, and surprisingly morally complicated waters of Colleen Hoover. We're specifically diving into one of her mega bestsellers, Reminders of Him.
Yeah, and our mission today, it's pretty straightforward, really. We need to understand the Hoover phenomenon. I mean, why does an author sometimes claim 4 out of the top 10 spots on bestseller lists? Like, at the same time?
It's incredible.
It really is. But beyond just the sales figures, we're looking at how she pulls this off, how she takes what looks like a simple premise, a difficult romance, and twists it into this, well, profoundly difficult story. It's about morality, accountability, forgiveness, even the architecture of grief.
That context is so important, especially for you, the listener, who might just pick this book up cold.
Right.
The title, Reminders of Him, it sounds like it could be maybe a psychological thriller.
Yeah.
Or some heavy drama.
You could definitely think that.
But the sources confirm this is firmly rooted in contemporary women's fiction, often labeled serious or emotionally driven romance.
And understanding that genre is key, isn't it, to understanding the massive success? Because, while statistically, women are the primary drivers of book sales. That's just a fact of the market.
Okay, so let's unpack this, starting with the setup, which is, frankly, devastating.
Yeah.
The whole plot hinges on Kenna Rowan and this terrible mistake she made 5 years before the novel even kicks off.
Yeah, it's a heavy, high-stakes introduction right from page 1. The core conflict is that Kenna has just gotten out of prison. She served 5 years for manslaughter.
Right.
She drove drunk, crashed the car, and her passenger, who was her boyfriend, Scotty, he was killed.
Oh, wow.
And the life sentence she served wasn't just the 5 years, it was the irreversible consequences.
And the biggest one, the most crushing consequence, is that she actually gave birth to their daughter, DM, while she was incarcerated.
Yes. And this is where the legal stuff and the moral complexity, it just skyrockets. Because the sources really hammer this home, that 5-year sentence, it wasn't just time served.
Yeah.
It automatically triggered the termination of her legal parental rights.
Permanently.
So this isn't just an obstacle she has to overcome. It's like a permanent structural barrier to her dream of being a mother.
And DM, the daughter.
Diem was adopted by Scotty's parents, the heartbroken victims of Kenna's actions. But they're described as really loving guardians.
Okay.
And Kenna, as the biological mother, she's have zero connection with her daughter, ever, since birth.
So she gets out of prison. She's got no money, totally alone.
Yeah.
But she's determined. She goes back to her old hometown.
Right.
And she has these 2 things she desperately wants. 1, the impossible task of reconnecting with DM. And 2, the maybe even more impossible task of asking Scotty's parents for forgiveness. Forgiveness she probably knows she won't get.
And this is where the story kind of pivots, from just pure tragedy to something more like high-stakes melodrama. Kenna bumps into Ledger Ward.
Ledger Ward, okay.
He's this kind, handsome bar owner, also a retired football player, and the attraction, it's immediate.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, mutually inconvenient and, totally electric.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting. The kind of coincidence that, let's be honest, probably only works in fiction.
Oh,
Ledger turns out to be Scotty's best friend.
Bingo. Scotty's best friend. And not just that, he lives across the street from DM.
No way.
Yes. And he's basically acted as this close, loving uncle figure to her for the past 5 years. And all that time, he'd cultivated this deep, deep hatred for Kenna, the woman who killed his friend, even though they'd never actually met.
Wow, so his conflict must be immense.
Oh, it's profound. Ledger absolutely knows, that any kind of relationship with Kenna would just destroy Scotty's parents.
Who probably see him as like a surrogate son now.
Exactly. So initially, he tries to sort of manage it. He acknowledges she's broke, helps her out financially a bit.
Okay.
But at the same time, he's basically pleading with her, you need to leave town now.
He's trying to buy his way out of the moral mess.
Kind of, yeah. But the tension just builds because, well, he starts to realize he doesn't actually want her to go. And they simply cannot stop falling for each other.
But this relationship, it's not just romantic, is it? It sounds functionally toxic. To the stability of DM's life, the community's peace. How does Hoover even manage that tension?
Yeah.
Without making Ledger seem weak or, hypocritical?
That's the tightrope walk of the whole book. And, reading just the plot summary, convict mom returns, meets dead boyfriend's best friend, it sounds, well, maybe a bit cheap.
Yeah, a little bit soap opera.
Right. But the sources point out that summary totally misses the the architecture of empathy that Hoover designs. The book isn't just about what happens, it's about why we're sort of forced to care about a protagonist who did something unforgivable.
Because Kenna is, on paper, an easy character to hate.
Right.
Especially in romance, where you often expect the heroine to be, I don't know, morally pretty solid. So what's the brilliant tactic? How does Hoover make sure we, the readers, actually connect with Kenna and understand her internal life?
Okay, so the structural brilliance, according to the analysis, lies in this epistolary element.
Yeah.
The letter.
Letters.
Yeah. Sprinkled throughout the novel are these letters that Kenna has been writing to Scotty since his death, 5 years before she even met Ledger.
Mm-hmm.
And these aren't just like diary entries. They are her heart poured out, raw, unguarded.
Okay, but wait. Writing letters to a dead person, isn't that kind of a classic literary device, like a trope? Why do the sources say Hoover's use of it here is brilliant and not just, standard?
That's a fair question. It's about the placement and the timing. These letters, they work on like 3 critical levels. First, they counteract our immediate judgment as readers.
How so?
Well, before we even see Kenna interact much with Diem's grandparents or even Ledger, we've already seen her guilt, her remorse, her overwhelming, raw, ongoing desire to be a mother. It shows her suffering is consistent. It wasn't just triggered by wanting something now.
Ah, okay. That's clever. It gives us all the backstory about her relationship with Scotty, the crash.
Yeah.
Without clunky flashbacks.
Exactly, and it forces us to acknowledge her humanity right away.
Okay, so that's one level. What else?
The second function is they're a direct, unfiltered look into the only conversation she can have about her trauma.
Right.
She can't talk to Scotty's parents about it.
Obviously not.
She can't talk to Diem. She has no friends. So the letters become this proxy for her internal world. They establish her identity not just as the convict, but as this grieving mother who made a catastrophic misstep.
Right. And the third layer, you said 3.
The third layer involves Ledger. He eventually ends up reading these letters, and that's what breaks down his prejudice against her. His hate was based on the crime, the act. The letters reveal the person underneath all that.
So their connection isn't just physical attraction. It deepens because he understands her grief.
Precisely. It's built on this shared understanding, in a way. And the dual perspective really helps us track this shift. We see Ledger's emotional journey, that initial understandable hate turning into kindness, then into love.
But we also see his loyalty to Scotty's memory and his love for Diem.
Exactly. The dual viewpoint lets us feel the immense tension and the conflicted feelings on both sides. Nobody feels like just a simple villain or a simple hero.
It really sounds like the complexity of the character's internal struggles just completely takes over the romantic plotline.
It really does.
So the book isn't just a romance novel that happens to have a tragic backstory. The romance kind of takes a backseat to these bigger themes like morality and forgiveness.
That's the consensus, yeah. And if you connect this to the bigger picture, the reason this novel resonated with millions, it seems, is that it forces you, the reader, to wrestle with genuinely difficult moral questions. Questions society often just, glosses over.
The sources pull out 3 core moral dilemmas that really define the whole novel. The first, and it's the most painful one, how do you even start to forgive the person who killed your child?
Yeah.
Regardless of how sorry they seem.
Yeah, that's almost insurmountable. And it's compounded by the second dilemma, which is this fundamental conflict of motherhood. How does Kenna reconcile her own, biological rage at being kept from her child with the brutal fact that Scotty's parents are permanently separated from theirs? Her pain is a direct result of their agony. There's no simple win-win here.
No, absolutely not. Which leads right to that central philosophical question the novel keeps poking at. Is one truly awful mistake worth a lifetime of punishment?
Right.
And Hoover doesn't let us forget, does she, that Kenna didn't exactly start life with advantages.
Yeah.
She had a tough childhood, lived in poverty, making it incredibly hard to rebuild after prison.
That socioeconomic angle is crucial. It really elevates the book beyond just being a tearjerker. It introduces this broader societal critique. Kenna's mistake, the drunk driving, that was her failure of agency, sure, but her struggle afterwards, it's kind of framed as a failure of the system to support people who mess up, especially when they come from difficult places to begin with.
Yeah, there's that observation crystallized in a specific quote, right?
Yeah.
Where Kenna reflects on this societal imbalance. It's not just feeling sorry for herself.
Exactly. It's on page 116, apparently. She thinks something like, life is a cruel, cruel thing, the way it picks and chooses who to bully.
Wow.
We're given these shitty circumstances and told by society that we too can live the American dream. But what they don't tell us is that dreams almost never come true.
That quote just shifts the whole focus, doesn't it? Away
Yeah.
from Ledger, away from the romance, almost justifying why we, as readers, are hoping so hard for Kenna.
Yes.
It makes it clear her real motivation isn't finding a guy. Her dream is to be reunited with her child, something most people just take for granted.
And that raises the core tension of the book, doesn't it? Is she allowed to live out that dream given the permanent damage her mistake caused? Is Hoover maybe, manipulating us, pushing us to see the victim's family who are guarding Diem as maybe less sympathetic than Kenna, the one who caused the harm, by focusing on her disadvantages?
It's such a delicate line Hoover walks. We absolutely see the pain of Scotty's parents, but we spend, 90% of the book inside Kenna's head, feeling her specific trauma.
Yeah, the narrative structure definitely tilts the empathy heavily in her favor. It makes us desperately want that reconciliation.
Which must be the key to the novel's success, then, forcing us to root for the person who is objectively morally culpable.
I think so. It forces us to engage with the sheer weight of judgment and ostracism that often follows mistakes like hers, especially for people who don't have strong support systems.
So what we have is this incredibly emotionally driven story. It explores really complex relationships, vulnerability, personal growth. But it's not just a story about finding love. It's more a journey towards, I guess, self-acceptance. And maybe acceptance by others.
Ultimately, yeah. Reminders of him feels less like a conventional romance with a neat happy ending.
Right.
And more like a sustained lesson in the power of forgiveness. Forgiveness from others, sure, but maybe more importantly, forgiveness from oneself. It's a really poignant reminder that healing takes just so much time, and that love and second chances can exist even in the absolute worst circumstances, but they are never, ever easily earned.
What really stands out to you, though, about how she handles such a massive moral failure, taking a life while still making us successfully root for Kenna, that seems like the biggest tightrope walk in the whole book. How does she pull that off without just excusing the crime?
I think it comes down to two main things. First, the absolute depth of her remorse, which we feel mainly through those letters, right? They make her suffering undeniable. And second, the object of her desire. It's purely maternal. It's not about getting rich or famous. It's not even really about Ledger in the end. It's about that fundamental human connection with her child.
So by making her core dream so pure, so basic.
Exactly. By making it so fundamental, Hoover structures the story so we are almost forced to want that redemption for her, even if we're left wrestling with the intellectual question of whether she truly, quote-unquote, deserves it. And if we connect this back to the bigger picture, the novel really compels us to think about that fine line. The line between accountability for a terrible mistake and the possibility of human redemption. Where should society draw the boundary for a lifetime of punishment? Especially when a person's most fundamental dream, being a mother, is what's at stake. And how does that boundary intersect with the permanent, undeniable grief of the victims?
Wow. That is a profound question to leave us mulling over. Thank you for joining us for this deep dive into reminders of him.